Hi, everyone. Always delighted to be talking with people from the world of comics. I use the word delighted a lot in these episodes because I am always delighted. And on this episode, I am talking with comics creator Scott James. I'll mention a couple of titles, including one that is currently in the works that you can go and support. And so, Scott, you've created in the world of Savage Dragon, the Erik Larsen universe as well as Starship Troopers. You've done some work on some comics adaptations of some Robert Heinlein meets Paul Verhoeven stuff. So really interesting work in that world as well.
It was fun. It was definitely fun. The two issues that I did, the one thing that I was frustrated about, I didn't get to draw any bugs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was like, no,
That's
there's no bugs. I want to draw bugs.
that's the thing. Well, at least you got to draw like the cool armor and stuff like that.
Yes, the armor
Yeah,
was awesome.
yeah. So you have a new book that I just noticed enter the world yesterday, and that is Juiceman. And so,
Yes,
would you like to tell us a little bit about Juice? Ah, there it is, Juiceman.
Juiceman. This is the collected of the first five issues in black and white, published by Marcosia.
Hmm.
Um, It is a Chicago-based superhero team. I'm in the Midwest. I'm like 2 hours from outside of Chicago, so I spend a lot of time in there. And issue 6 is dropping, and it's the first issue that will be in full color. Nikos, who colors Savage Dragon, also colors my work, does my covers, does my concert
Nice.
posters that I do. Um, he's doing the full colors. I have Jeff Johnson of Wonder Man fame,
Hmm.
who just had a very successful Kickstarter. He's penciling 7 pages of just a slobber knocker of a fight between Juice, Icelander, Freedom, and Plasma, ending the issue. So that's just been exciting working with all of these professionals. Some that I've worked with before. Jeff Johnson I've just recently within the last year not met him in person, but talking to him,
Hmm.
agreed to do these 7 pages, and the layouts have just been mind blowing.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like wonderful collaboration. And you mentioned Marcosia there, so just want to give a shout out to the publishers that don't always get notice. There are those larger publishers that people sort of go to for comics, but Marcosia being one of those that they don't sponsor me or anything, but really interesting work that's out from Marcosia.
I've done, like I said, well, like you said, Starship Troopers was with Marcosia.
Hmm.
I co-created the Case Files of Harlan Falk, which came out through Marcosia with Cy Dethon. He and I co-created it. That came out, and I happened to talk to Harry because I was putting out floppies of Juiceman, and Harry's like, "Well, I'm interested in the collected, floppies." To him was kind of a dying entity, and
Hmm.
it's easier to get into bookstores
Yeah.
with collected. So I was like, all right, well, once I get to 5 issues, uh, would you be interested in publishing it? And he was all on board for it, and I ended up getting, which was great, a John Romita Jr. Cover. So
Yeah.
John Romita Jr. did the pencils to the cover of the collected, and I did the inks and what's in the vignettes, and I shipped it off to Nikos. Nikos did the color treatment, makes me look way better than I am. uh, Color always looks better, and the rest is history. In the Kickstarter that I have going on right now, I've got a exclusive limited run of the John Romita Jr. pencils
Oh, nice.
on the cover for
Nice.
issue 6, as a Kickstarter exclusive.
Love it.
So yeah,
Uh,
just seeing the pencils sometimes, as an artist, you just like seeing how things, were cooked. You
yeah.
know, you tend to decipher and see how people lay down lines, how they shade. You can a lot of times tell how somebody holds a pencil by, the type of line that they get.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's yeah, and definitely you're talking about the Kickstarter exclusives. It's just so cool to me that creators have the venue now to share there and to have these exclusives and to be able to put work out into the world in this very cool way that people can also participate in as well.
Oh yeah, and seeing the project from its inception through its production, it's just amazing. I've backed some Kickstarters that it was just seeing how it started in its infancy and has just taken off.
Yeah.
I've seen some collaborators or some collaborators put out Kickstarters that I'm just like blown away by.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
Dirk Manning does a phenomenal job with his Kickstarters. I was fortunate enough to do Butts and Seats, the Tony Schiavone story with him,
Hmm.
and just watching him how he runs his Kickstarters, I'm just like going, yeah, wow. How do you do
Definitely.
that? He's got pools of endless energy. I have to supplement mine with copious amounts of coffee.
Yes, yes. Same here. I have a coffee mug over here and tea mug over here, so it's all the time, all the time. But that gets the creative juices flowing, I
Oh yeah.
guess. Yeah. So curious if we can take a step back to the origin story really quickly here. And if you don't mind to share with folks, what drew you to comics in the first place? When did you decide, hey, this is the thing for me? Because I also know you live another life, as I do, as an educator. I was a
Yes.
middle school teacher for 8 years, and I currently teach high school. So,
See,
yes.
I was a fifth grade math and science teacher, uh, and I did my bachelor's is in illustration, my master's is in education, and I went into math and science because art is usually the first thing cut. So
Uh-huh. Hmm.
the
Hmm.
district that I was in, they were posted a position for a sixth grade art teacher, and I let it sit because I was like, I wasn't not happy doing math and science. I enjoyed math more so than science, but and I would do my art at night, my freelance illustration and my comic books at night. And my wife finally said, are you a moron? And I'm like, I'm guessing because you've told me this a few times. She goes, go for it. Go for it. It's your passion. It's what you want to do. Why not be happy and draw pretty pictures all day? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am a moron. So I kicked the pebble, and they wanted to build the art program, and they only had art in eighth grade in
Hmm.
a 6 through 8 building. So I've been in that position now for 3 years, and since then we've gotten the bridge from sixth grade to eighth grade art, and I bring a heavy drawing illustration background to it. So
Nice.
absolutely love it.
I teach English, but we tend to either read comics or make comics out of things. It just seems to happen often.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I remember when I was in school that when they, you had to do a book report, and I'd be like, "Hey, can I read? That's not literature. That's not a book."
Mhm. It
And
is, in fact,
comic
a
books
book.
were not books, and you couldn't read them. You couldn't do book reports on them, though they
Yeah.
weren't written for kids. They weren't written for me. I had to look up half the words, and when we had a dictionary, we didn't have the Google machine.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm a firm believer in comics and just the collected, the graphics, the floppies, whatever
Same.
you know.
Same. Love it. Love it. So you've also, in addition to teaching, uh, you have this creative life of creating in the world. Do your students know about your alter ego as Scott James,
Ish.
collaborator with Erik Larsen?
No, I don't. Some have found out just by how they stalk you on the interweb,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
through stalking primarily.
Right.
They go, oh, you did that. I'm like, yeah, I did this. I've worked on the movie Small Soldiers, doing concept design for Hasbro. So
Nice.
they
Nice.
find these things out. I don't sit there and boast about it. Because I'm there to teach them how to draw, not
Yeah.
tell them what I draw. So if they ask me, I'll give them a little, but it's not something that I sit there and overly promote.
Yeah. Yeah. What were the first comics for you? What were the initial draws?
I was in art class as a junior or senior in high school, and Brian Bailey, never forget it, turned around, slapped down a Mark Silvestri X-Men. He goes, Scott, you got to check this out. And it was like my crack dealer, because I didn't have a comic shop growing up. There was no comic shop.
Yeah.
I'm a Gen Xer. There were no comic shops. And I lived in a small town, and I had to, eventually there was a comic shop that opened up in DeKalb, Illinois. Northern Lights, no longer in existence, that I would go to. But before then, Brian Bailey was my crack dealer because he had a subscription to
Uh-huh,
Marvel.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
So he got all these in the mail, and he'd bring them into art class, and he would hand them to me. And I devoured early Mark Silvestri X-Men. And
Nice.
at that point, I knew I wanted to do this.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just picturing kids in school because I was also one of those kids that was like, can we read comics? Are comics allowed? And also the kid who had sort of the rotating comic shop. It was sort of like a carnival that would come and then go, and you were like, what happened to that? And it's like, oh, it's gone now. But picturing kids being like, I got the comics. The comics are right here, that kind of thing.
Before that comic store opened, there was a grocery store. Again, not in the town I lived in. It wasn't until I got my driver's license that I could go and explore. It had a spinner rack.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, and it was hard to get a consistent title off of a spinner rack,
Hmm. Hmm.
you
True.
know.
You took what you could get. It might be a number three, a number four, or a number one.
Yes. Or it might skip,
Right.
you miss, oh, hey, it's back 3 issues later. And
Yep.
then you're
Yep.
trying to fill in the gap.
Yeah.
So,
Totally. So I'm curious about the spaces where people can go and find out information, social media, web spaces, and I know that there's a Kickstarter campaign, so I'm assuming we can go to Kickstarter and search Juiceman.
correct. You
Hmm.
can Google Scott James Art, Scott James Art on Instagram. I've got Scott James Art on the Facebook. Um, I'm on Twitter. Those are, I don't tweet as much because I still trying to figure out that platform.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's either hit or miss,
Hmm.
or at
Hmm.
least that's how I find it. So,
True.
but I tend to do a lot on Instagram and Facebook.
Cool, cool. Same here. Same here. And final question, and then we can hit anything that we've missed. And that is, I know you have these creative relationships. Anybody that's been particularly kind, supportive, on the creative journey?
I've had a few. Ron Wagner was, well, Mark A. Nelson from Aliens fame.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
uh, he was my instructor at NIU. He was a big influence on me. Then Ron Wagner, who did Daredevil and G.I. Joe for Marvel. I was his uh, basically a studio monkey there for a while. I learned a lot underneath him. The last 3 years of Alex Toth's life, he and I were pen pals.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that was
cool.
because when I was growing up, I had an aunt that one time asked me, "What did you want to be when you grew up?" I was always saying cartoon,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
she knew what I meant, like a cartoonist, because I grew up watching all of, not unbeknownst to me, all of Alex Toth's model sheets, his creations for Hanna-Barbera. So being able to, in the last 3 years of his life, be a pen pal and have him get pissed at me and not pissed at me, and kick me to the curb and welcome me back. It was definitely a roller coaster, but one I wouldn't change. Just going back and reading the little postcards he would send,
Yeah.
would just, to this day brings me joy. And of course, Erik Larsen, for giving me the opportunity to do a horrific pinup in issue 66, where I totally got the fin wrong. But Juiceman makes his first appearance in issue 66. He's in a poster in the background.
Nice.
So Juiceman is what Erik was drawn to. And when I did my first pinup, uh, he saw that work and was like, do you want to do a pinup? I'm like, sure. I met him at the Motor City Comic Con
Hmm.
one year.
Hmm.
And that's also how I got my not my Hanna-Barbera, my Hasbro work doing concept design for Action Man and Small Soldiers and Small Soldiers 2, which never happened. Uh, but it was through that Motor City Comic Con making those connections.
Cool.
Yeah, meeting John Romita Jr. It was all in that Motor City Comic Con for years that I made a lot of great connections. Dirk Manning to
Mhm.
be one. So, and Erik has just been gracious by letting me play in his sandbox and have some of my characters appear in his book. So some of the characters in Juiceman actually appear in stories in Savage Dragon because
Mhm.
he's like, hey, just a throwaway character. I'm like, do you mind if I throw in my guy? He's like, yeah, sure. And
Great,
Gavin
great.
and I have collaborated. Gavin Higginbotham, the editor on Savage Dragon and Juiceman, um, has written some backup stories for Savage Dragon because he knows all Savage Dragon. He's got like a photographic memory and he's like the go-to guy.
Nice.
He's written some backups that I've illustrated, and we co-collaborated or co-created Kill Crazy, which will be appearing in issue. Well, he's in the trade. He's in this guy, and he will be appearing in issue number 7. So
Nice. Love that
yeah,
there's a plan. Love that
yeah. Oh,
there's an
yeah.
arc.
Yes, yeah. So um, those are the main guys that I've been gracious enough to work with, or they've seen something in me
Mhm.
to help me along in this journey. And now meeting and talking and working with Jeff Johnson and seeing the beautiful work he does, there's always something I take away from each experience, good,
Mhm.
bad, or indifferent, but mostly good. There was always a little bad with Alex Toth because you didn't know which side of the bed you were going to get him on. There's times
Right.
that I'm like, oh yeah, my stuff is garbage. And then the next minute it's like, hey kid, you got your chops, and it's like, oh yay.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it would be those guys that I really admire and look up to.
Cool, cool. Well, Scott, anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to add before we close out?
um just if you get a chance, please check out the Kickstarter. There's a lot of interesting tiers. There's a lot of exclusives, limited, like the limited or the exclusive covers or variant covers. There's only going to be 100 produced. So I've got some from John Romita Jr., Guile Sharp. There's one from me. There's sketch opportunities. I think for $50 you can get in the inside back cover. I do a artist sketch because it's
Nice,
on
nice.
cardstock.
Mhm.
So I'll do an inside cover sketch for like $50 inside the book. Copic markers. There's an executive producer tier for if you get the book at a $25 rate, you get your name in the book. So there's a lot of interesting tiers, and there's opportunity to get like the complete package where you get the collected and issue 6, so you get the full story from 1 through 6.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, the link will be either up here or down here, and it'll also be in the show notes. And always a pleasure to talk with a comics creator, fellow educator, and as the mug says, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Scott James. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for talking with me, and glad to talk anytime.